All right. Good afternoon and welcome everybody to another episode of the Energy Power Play series, where our hope as always is to engage, inspire, and educate the future of sustainable energy leaders. Today we have a special guest and a very important topic. We'll be talking about SMRs, and as our title suggests, the question is, will we see mini nukes or micro or small modular reactors coming to a neighborhood near you? So, with us to discuss this is a friend of mine, Anup Poudel. Anup is a researcher student at the University of Windsor, working on the cutting edge of nuclear innovation and sustainable agriculture. Passionate about clean energy, um, his research really explores the integration of small modular reactors into Southern Ontario's greenhouse industry, offering transformative approach to energy efficiency and sustainability. And of course, his groundbreaking work was recognized at the 2024 Canadian Greenhouse Conference, where he presented a practical decarbonization blueprint that's shaping the future of greenhouses, which also happens to be, the event where I first had the pleasure of meeting Anup. So Anup, thank you very much for joining me today. It's great to have you.
Thanks a lot. Firstly, good afternoon to everyone. Yeah, it's amazing field to be like the energy, clean energy, nuclear, smaller nuclear modular reactors. So many things to talk about, and I have so many things to discuss, and so that like there is a lot of unknown things which we'll discover today, right?
We'll dive right into it, and yeah, to,
Exactly.
to your point, thank you for everybody that's tuning in live, and for everybody that's watching this recording after the fact. It will be posted on LinkedIn as well as eventually on the different podcasting channels. So Anup, our conversation will live on forever, and perhaps it could be the start of some groundbreaking works specifically here in Canada sector. Before we get into the technology, Anup, tell me a bit about yourself. Like where were you raised? How did you get into the crazy field of energy?
That's yeah, that's how everything starts, right? So I am I'm raised in Nepal. I'm from Nepal, and it's a small country, South Asia, and more of a hydro energy, I'll say, hydro and solar now.
Okay.
And like when I was in my schooling, my high school, we always lack energy. So there used to be energy deficient in our country, and I think that is something integrate me in my mind, so that I really wanted to do something in the energy. And when I was growing up, I was interested in mechanical engineering, and I did my bachelor's, and then I applied for University of Windsor in Canada. I got an opportunity to work under Dr. Ting and Dr. Caribou, and fortunately, I got an opportunity to work in the energy. So it's like everything, every dots got connected. To be honest,
Ah, perfect. A bit of destiny almost.
yeah.
Interesting you say that, and I'm just thinking back to, you know, back home as well in Eastern Europe where I was raised, and I was too young, but I remember, certain talk show radio hosts, reenacting the Chernobyl disaster, for example, and this was a big deal because we were actually potentially within the radius. And as well in Bulgaria, where I was growing up, we also had intermittent brownouts where, everybody had to stack up on candles and be prepared for the brownouts. Something that, for the majority of folks, especially in the metropolitan areas of Canada, they don't. We may not really appreciate just how reliable and strong our grid system is.
Yeah.
But Just to say that I feel you on that one. I have some experience with having to light up candles as a child as well.
Yeah, that's good. Like, yeah, I think when there is a problem, and if you got an opportunity to understand in more detail, then you can relate more into the solution. I will say that,
Right,
right?
right.
So, and this, like, the thing we're talking about is all about solution.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so for the energy management folks that typically either tune in over here or to the 600 subscribers on our Energy Power Play newsletter, I think what folks want to know is they want to get beyond the hype of SMRs as a terminology and understand, is this a practical application, and can we use it, where can we use it, I'm sorry, and when can we see these things. And so I think these are some of the questions that may be floating around, and for those folks that are tuned in, feel free to drop comments in the chat. We'll make them visible at the end, but as we're talking, I'm happy to review any comments and questions if you feel the need to engage. Always happy to get your perspectives. But with that said, maybe let's start here. So we have a concept of nuclear power plants, right? Like what we see in Pickering, Ontario, and in a few other places in Ontario, and they support a large part of our grid. Um, what is the difference between a traditional nuclear power plant? What is a mini nuke? What is an SMR? And then there's also talks of MMRs, which is micro modular reactors. Maybe let's start by defining what are these three. What is a threshold roughly, and then we'll take it from there.
Yep. I will say, like, you have just asked me exact same question everyone does to me. So because I have been doing research in this particular field, the first question will be why it is different than the bigger sized reactor, right? Like as per the definition, like there are different criteria. Let's say talk about the size. Like traditional reactor are bigger. They are like more than 10, like 1,000 megawatt electric production capabilities, right? And
Mhm.
smaller means smaller size. So they are considered, as per definition, they are around up to 300 megawatt electric power. So they are a smaller modular reactors. And under small modular reactor, there are micro micro reactors, and they are up to 10 megawatt electric power. So these is a specific definition, like how we differentiate: this is bigger, this is small, this is micro. Well, as I mentioned, there are other particular things beside that, because uh, bigger reactor means bigger plant, right?
Mhm.
Bigger balance
Right.
of plant. Smaller means smaller plant, means like more flexible as well, right? Like those are the things, like advantages of small modular reactors. And right now, as I mentioned, nuclear reactors is not a new idea, it was always there. Like we have seen a lot of reactors in Ontario, like OPG, Bruce. There's so many like big reactors there, right? Can do reactors. So it's not
Right.
a new idea to make it a smaller size. It's not a new idea. There have been there, but the application was different because of the investment it required to make, the investment it required to manage is like comparatively high.
Mhm.
So a smaller reactor is not a new idea. It was always there, but in a different form, right? And different way of application. So as now, there are I think 80 designs of a small modular reactor approved by I think International Atomic Energy Agency.
Okay.
And
So 80 different
yes,
designs
yes.
of SMRs, MMRs.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 80 different designs. And like as I mentioned, different small modular reactors are different types. So as per their type, some are high temperature reactors, some are modular salt reactor. There are different other types within a small modular reactor itself, like a
Right.
bigger reactors. So right now I think it's around 80 or more than that, a little bit more than that. And among them also they have differentiated into I think four categories, like whether they are in conceptual design stage, basic design stage, they are like in detailed design stage, they are in construction, and I think only three are in operational. So, and those three are in one in Russia, one in China, and one in Japan. So there are only three micro or smaller modular reactors in operational. And as of this
That's
North America side,
three in the world so
yes,
far
yes,
that are in
yes, three,
operation.
three in the world. And this is
Yeah,
also as per the data, right? As per
right.
the information provided by IAEA. But I don't know much more into that, like
Hmm.
how they are operating. Like, is it like connected to the grid? There are a few
Right.
other things behind that which is unknown. But yeah,
For
so
for those three, I'm curious. Have they been around for a while, or have they recently been commissioned? You know, in the last decade or so.
I think from 2010 it got started. Like it has to come up with
Okay.
different stages, right? First stage, like maybe a design. Second stage, approval. So many things. There are so
Right.
many things in that. But I think the Japan one was the recently built, as per my knowledge, which is under operational. But
Hmm.
again, as I mentioned, uh, we don't have that much of information because the technology is not mature yet. It's in very early stage, right? There could be a kind of a demonstration site as well. There could be kind of a test
Right.
situation as well, like. So we don't know much about it, but yeah, like in North America, there is nothing right
Hmm.
now. Everyone is talking about the SMR. Like, we are talking about designing, we are talking about starting from the base. Although, like, few companies like OPG are interested in small modular reactors, and of course, in coming 5 to 6 years, we will see one in like North America for sure.
So let me ask you with that, and the Darlington plant here in Ontario, and
Yep.
I believe that's set to produce around 300 megawatts.
Yep.
Is that considered an SMR?
Yes, yes, yes. It is a SMR, like 300 electrical power, 300
Hmm.
megawatt electricity. I think at Darlington one, they are starting with one module, one reactor, and then with certain time, they want to extend with make it a bigger size. So having more reactor in it and making, I think, 200 megawatt electricity. So target wise, like with small modular reactor plant, is you start with the smaller size and then slowly you increase the size, right?
Right. K- do you know roughly, and this is touted in the news quite a bit actually, that um, Canada is leading the way with small modular reactors, pointing specifically to the Darlington project.
Yep.
And I think just yesterday I saw a post from the energy minister, Stefan Lecce, who shared his details of a trip in Romania, where I believe they signed a contract for Canada to support Romania's um, nuclear energy structure using CANDU reactors, which I believe is a Canadian type of technology. So I guess a couple things. Where do you sort of see Canada in this evolving landscape, right? So there's 80 different models. Many of them haven't been implemented from what we're hearing. Although the SMR in Darlington seems to be leading the way and could come online as one of the early ones in North America. But especially now, as we're talking in kind of leveraging energy as a tool and a source of power in a way because of our experience and our resource in Canada, where do you see SMRs on that front? Is this something? And maybe this is a different conversation than research
Yep.
into the technology, but more of an economic question. Is there a play for Canada to become a leader in SMRs and MMRs?
Honestly, Canada has a big opportunity right now. As you mentioned, like CANDU reactors, there are, I think, 18 to 19 throughout the world, and they are a proven technology. The
Hmm.
only factor is they are bigger in size, takes time in construction, so many other factor with it. But like Canada has been doing, and the grid, Canadian grid, like let's say Ontario grid, like I think 30% nuclear. So we have that edge, right? We are in the front runner, to be honest, in nuclear, because we have already seen the technology. There are people working in nuclear, and we trust nuclear as well because we are using nuclear power energy from the grid,
Hmm.
right? So that's are the very important things to get nuclear power, because of the people's perspective as well. It's a nuclear, right? People might think other way as well. So nuclear might have a disaster, so many things with it. So
Yeah.
as Canadian people like already are using nuclear power, and there are like proven technology here, it's easier to have small modular reactor technology in Canada, because of the perspective is different. People are welcoming with new tech, right? So I think Canada has a big opportunity, especially with those factors, as we have already seen uh,
Hmm.
the nuclear power and why it is important. We already know why it
Right.
is important. So these are the major factor behind development, or like as I mentioned, like the problem and solution, right? So we know the problem already. We have a lot of demand, energy demand, and being in Canada, I realized that we are more we have a heavy population density in a specific region, right? So we need more power nearby that region or that specific cities. So
Right.
to have that, we need very reliable and smaller size, easy to construct, like takes comparatively less time to construct. So I think we have a better we are in a better position as a Canada.
Hmm.
And as I've mentioned, the candy reactors is it's I think it should be a inspiration for those company who have been working on small modular reactors, because they have seen how candy reactor become those like big popular reactor, right?
Right.
And right now, like it for being in an Ontario, like we are using nuclear energy. So in future, after maybe a decade, we might have more than like 5 or 10 small modular reactors, right? So
Right.
we are in a very better position, I'll say that.
Yeah, and you touched on a few important components. One is that we need the power. The ISO in Ontario is projecting we need 75% more power to meet the growing demand by 2050. This is powered by data centers, AI, electrification in general. So that is a tremendous task that, frankly, is going to require everything. And the cleaner and less emissive we can make it, the more reliable we can make it, the stronger we'll be as a nation and as a province and jurisdiction. Um, you touched a little bit about Canadians' perception of nuclear power. So when we opened the conversation, my first thought came back to Chernobyl,
Yep.
and this was ingrained for me somewhat as a child before I was even in Canada, and there seems to be this tie when you say nuclear. And I know growing up, I remember watching The Simpsons, for example. I don't know if anybody here tuned into The Simpsons, where the main character, was this not very bright man who was responsible for, the nuclear power plant in some place, I think in Ohio. I'm not really sure, but there's always this fear of, what happens if you have somebody silly in a position where they can, cause this massive
Yeah,
disaster.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
there's two things. In terms of safety, and I'm sure as you have these conversations, this is probably the first or second most question.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about safety, and not specific to large traditional reactors, but more for small modular and micro reactors. What are
Yep.
some of the safety implications?
Yep, exactly. Uh, I will connect few things in it. Like regarding safety, how we see is like nothing is 100% like a guarantee safe. Okay, in the world, like there could happen anything. Even a diesel power engine can happen anything. But it's about percentage, right? It's about probability, right?
Right.
One in
Yep.
thousand, one in million, like that. Uh, Regarding small modular reactors, as I mentioned, it is smaller in size, means lower radioactive component in it, and it's better to is completely easier to handle as well. And another aspect is like major difference between the big large traditional and the small modular reactor is these reactors design itself have a lot of safety features in it, like passive safety, which doesn't need any external source to shut down the reactors. Like
Okay.
big reactor needs energy to shut down or cool down the reactor. we need pump, we need additional energy to supply, and then we have to shut down it, and it takes 72 hours. Like, it's not happens just now. So although like, I'm not saying they are not safe, they are safe. Like, they have been a lot of technology, uh, engineers are working on it, and it's safety and so many other factors. But I'm just trying to say that small modular reactors, since it is smaller in size and shape as well, uh, it come up with different passive safety measures, and that doesn't need any kind of energy. Means they are not dependent on others, it's independent safety features. So if something goes wrong, some temperature fluctuation goes wrong, just with natural convection it might shut down. So it is comparatively safe. And the major reason behind the slow progression of nuclear reactor is safety. It's because of those incident back then, right? There are a few incident happened with nuclear power plant. Like, people are little scared to work with nuclear power plants, the nuclear energy, right? So I think people
Right.
have invested a lot of their research, there are a lot of technology, their money, everything in the safety. And I believe that small modular reactors has more safe, have more safety features than a traditional reactors. And I'm not saying that I'm researching in this particular field. The data, the few research and few of the articles which have been saying about it. So I really felt the smaller size reactor is better. And also, as a person, for example, uh, I know what happened in past, right? So if there is a reactor coming to my city, I might be scared, like big traditional reactor, because I know it's some, if something goes wrong and if it is not controlled, then anything can happen. But if it is little smaller size, then the impact, let's say the risks, will be smaller, and I
Right.
might be comparatively comfortable with it. So I think that that is something small modular reactors comes with in, like, mentality, right, with nuclear energy. So I will say, with both people's perspective and the safer option, small modular reactor is one. And another part you mentioned, the why now. Yeah, the demand, it's like going up crazy, like exponentially. And we have a limited time. If we can't act now, or we if we don't react, then we might miss opportunities, right? With the energy demand going up, we'll be limited with supply, and we have to limit our progression with it. So with the limited time and effort, I'll say, we need to have more energy. And I think a small modular reactor bring that opportunity.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. And I think one of the applications that we've seen, and maybe this is a good segue towards your work specifically with the greenhouse sector. I'm curious. You know,
Yeah.
what did you study? Um, what are some of the models that you came up with, and what were some of the conclusions that you derived specific to the greenhouse sector? And then the other piece, of course, is it appears that the demand for data centers, AI data centers, some of these, hyperscalers,
Yep.
requiring 50, 100, 300 megawatts at a single site. And having been involved in many of these conversations now,
Yeah.
these data centers are very much willing to do what is sustainable, but you just can't draw that kind of power with solar, with wind on site, right? These are very intensive processes. And the honest reaction that I think I'm getting, especially in the US and perhaps in Canada too, is that as much as data centers want to be sustainable, they need power on site yesterday to meet the demands and contracts that are assigned. So there's not a lot of time. And the only feasible option that a lot of them are seeing is to bring on-site natural gas generation, potentially backed by on-site natural gas or diesel generators. And that is coming from data center folks that I've spoken with that manage, you know, large data centers. So I think this is part of the reason why, we're seeing Google, and they've signed contracts with, I think, was it 500 megawatts, with for an SMR set to come online around 2030. A few other companies have signed, numerous gigawatts of these SMRs and MMRs to supply their data centers. So maybe talk about first of that, the data center space in general, and then maybe segue a little bit into the agriculture space, and then afterwards, what are we missing? Right? Is it remote community? Is it some other application that we should be looking at?
Yep, that's a very interesting question. And like with data centers, yeah, like they require a lot of energy, and they require reliable energy, steady energy, right?
Yeah.
So we like let's t- let's talk about the options. What they have, they have hydro, which is not enough, which is not practical in everywhere,
Hmm.
and there is solar panel, wind, not reliable, depends upon the geography, everything there, right? Weather, let's say weather is a big factor for
Right.
them. So they doesn't have an option beside natural gas or nuclear.
Yeah. And,
And
and by the way, the when they're filling in, these applications with utilities and jurisdictions, they're
yeah.
actually being told, "We're happy to have you, but please bring your own power
Mm.
because of the grid capacity constraints."
Exactly. Yep. And as I mentioned, it will be a limitation. So, for example, with these data centers, the AI technology going up recently, like after COVID, it is like going skyrocket, and we are requiring a lot of energy. And right now, the mature technology is natural gas. To be honest, being
Right.
honest, natural gas is a good technology to have. Um, and it is reliable, and if they need like exactly 1 megawatt they can do, if they need 10 they can do, right? We just have to pay the natural gas expenses. but
Right.
but the thing is, one, it is limited source, although Canada is one of the biggest reservoir, but it is a limited source. Another
Yep.
is we are not talking about the global impact. We are creating tons of CO2, and the
Yep.
carbon capture technology is still in development. It's not, it can't capture like more than 95% of CO2. And if we go beyond that, it will be super expensive. So data center have to put a lot of money to capture the carbon, right? So right now the easy way is to use natural gas power data center and just make global warm right. So that's been
Yep.
the case. And if we don't come with other substitute option, it is what it going to be honest. And I'll say data center is one of the reason why people are more interested in small modular reactors, because the option, like they doesn't have any option beside natural gas, and they all know that we are increasing global temperature. And if we can't control, or one day the global there will be some kind of agreement, or the even the state of Canada might come up with their own law, right?
Hmm.
So so they are interested in sustainable option, and SMR nuclear reactors, these are the clean technology, they are clean energy. So that's why I think more concentration, like more people are attracted towards nuclear reactor, especially particularly smaller reactor, because for a smaller size, of course. And as I mentioned, it provide an opportunity of scalability. So if we have one small modular reactor and a data center in location, we can replicate exact same in different location, right?
Hmm.
And then that makes more practical sense, right? To have maybe 25,000 megawatt data center in particular location, or 25 different location. So I will say that is something, or what data center, maybe the manufacturer, the investor are interested on. And another aspect is what we haven't talked about is the demand. Let's say, if we see the energy requirement, it's already going up. And if
Right.
we have more than 10 data center in couple of year, it might go like maybe 25% up again, and we don't have the source,
Right.
right? We might end up exploring more into natural gas, which as an engineer or as a Canadian, anyone doesn't want to be honest, but they have to because no option, right? So I will say that it is the reason behind why people are interested in small modular reactors, especially the data center
Hmm.
specific reason or the particular field. But it is not only one, as you mentioned,
Right.
the agriculture.
Right.
Agriculture, the greenhouses, like as I am in southern Ontario, I live just next to the greenhouse. I will say a lot of greenhouse network, right, in Leamington. So their energy demand is huge, and ISO is estimating it's going to be up again, like up to maybe 100% in couple of years. So
Yep.
with those demand uh, going up, and agriculture like food production is always required. You can't say we don't need food. It's a very important thing for a
Yeah.
human survival, right? So I will say for the demand perspective as well, there is a huge energy demand coming up, and that's why the greenhouses in southern Ontario were interested in this particular small modular reactor. And that's why I was interested, or I was introduced to this research. As a student in turbulence and energy lab, we have been working together with greenhouses of Leamington from like last decade, and this project with a small modular reactor and greenhouses came from the collaboration between greenhouse, our lab, and CNL, and we look into whether it is feasible to have a small modular reactor and might power one greenhouse, two greenhouse, or three greenhouses, because greenhouses need both heat and electricity, and
Right.
with reactor we can get both
Right.
electricity and heat. So that was the primary reason why we were interested, or why we started this particular research. And
Perfect. Just
yep,
just
this,
one second, if I
yep,
can interrupt.
yep,
Um, for the folks listening in, I think it's important to note that the area that Anup is referring to in southwestern Ontario, it's a couple towns, Leamington, Kingsville, that are not
yep,
very popular unless you live close by.
yep,
But these are the largest concentration of greenhouses in North America. There is literally billions of pounds of produce being produced right here in Ontario. And as someone who's done work along with you, Anup, in the greenhouses, there's some amazing things happening where you're seeing very high yield of produce in ways that require far less water than any traditional farming method. And they are more energy intensive.
yep, yep,
But the production, the yield, the efficiency that you get in a lot of these greenhouses are just incredible, and it really seems like this is the only way we're going to feed the world in a place where water is a finite resource, where energy is a finite resources, and of course where land is a finite resource, where we can't have sprawling fields of traditional agriculture, where the greenhouses here in the area we're talking about can do 10 times the amount on a spot that's probably 50 times smaller. So just wanted to make that reference for the
yep,
folks listening in. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Leamington, Kingsville, and the greenhouse sector, definitely do, because it's
yep,
a powerhouse for Canada in an important sector. But yes, so they have the high power needs mainly for lighting, obviously humidity, temperature control, but they also have high heating needs because plants need to be warm, kept at a nice cozy temperature,
yep.
especially during the Canadian Canadian winters.
Waiters, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I thought that we take it for granted, the amazing things happening here in Leamington, because we just see it, but for other folks, it's important to
Yeah,
note.
that's a really good point you add on this. Yep, yep, that's true. Like Leamington, Kingswell, especially the Windsor, uh, a lot of people are growers. They are working in agricultural field, and with the technology, the production rate going up means the energy demand going up particularly. And in, I think, past couple of years we have seen, I think from 2018 to 2024, the electricity requirement of this particular region has increased by 120 to 150 percentage. So
Wow.
that makes like
Yeah.
the good thing is we are producing more. The good thing is
Yep.
we are increasing the production. We Our technology is growing up, but the demand is also going up, and that was the need, right? That was the problem here. Like if the rate goes on like this, there will be a situation where growers will be interested in expanding their greenhouses, but they will be limited by the resource. They
Yeah.
will be limited by
Which
the energy.
which is the case today. Like
Yes,
the
exactly.
conversation with some of the large growers is, we plan on building this and adding this capability, but we either don't have the power, or
Yep.
we may not even have the natural gas capability in certain
Yeah,
locations.
exactly. and and again, with this requirement, we started the feasibility study. And like the greenhouses are exact opposite to data centers, I'll say that.
Hmm.
Although I am not expert in either of these, but the energy demand of greenhouses is very flexible. It
Right.
can goes up and it can come completely down. Like it depends heavily on weather, it depends heavily on the climate, and it depends heavily on the growth of the plant as well, right?
Right.
So there is tons of a control mechanism going on with the greenhouses, and that was a biggest challenge for us to uh, make integrate the small modular reactor and see whether it is practically good enough for the greenhouses, like because these are flexible. And if SMR are good enough for greenhouses, like it will be good for anything, to be honest, right?
Right.
So that was the little challenge. But yeah, as I mentioned, we did a particular feasibility studies, and we created some models, we run simulations to see. We started with the data center, greenhouses data, the heating demand, their electricity demand. And we realized that the demands are, as I mentioned, is flexible. It's hourly based flexible demands. And small modular reactors, although it is said that it follows load, it is flexible enough, you can ramp up and ramp down, but there is certain limitation with it. There
Hmm.
is certain limitation, like it doesn't ramp up like the natural gas fire engine. It takes
Right.
time. And there are, and it's a there is a reason behind it. There is certain gene formation in the reaction, and that act opposite to ramping up. So there is so many things in the reactor, so it is not practical enough to follow the exact fluctuation as per the greenhouses. Then what we realized was there is an opportunity.
Hmm.
If we make a load following, so many complication there. You have to have a control system, you have to have a lot of people working with it, and you are making system complex. And what I understand with the nuclear energy system is you have to make it very simple,
Right.
so so that it is more safe, right? So if we run the reactor, let's run it at a capacity factor of 80% or 90%, let's see.
And keep
So
it steady.
exactly. So that's what we did. We run a simulation, like making understanding the peak of the greenhouse, and we just see. Let's design a SMR as per the peak and see how much energy will we will get as a unused energy, because as I mentioned, the demand is fluctuating, right? So there will be tons of unused energy because the SMR is designed as per the peak. And
Right.
we realize that with our calculation, we realize that we will end up having more unused energy than the actual demand. So it makes no sense to have more energy, right, than the demand. And then uh, well, we are talking with the natural gas run engined greenhouses in Leamington. We realize that there is an opportunity to replace those as well with
Hmm.
hydrogen production. So as I mentioned, like we need energy, we need at high ramping rates. That's why people have natural gas engines. So if we use that unused energy from SMR to produce hydrogen, then we have a better opportunity to substitute that natural gas as well slowly. not right now, but slowly. It takes time, because slowly we'll replace that natural gas fire engine by hydrogen, and we use SMR to produce the exact steady flow. And if we need more than that, we use hydrogen power engine for a while, and
Hmm.
that makes more system sense, right? So we end up calculating whether we have to go with hydrogen production with that unused energy or not. So that was the few talks with the this particular project which I was involved with. And I realized that with SMR we have an opportunity to replace natural gas as well, by using those unused energy and producing hydrogen. The major reason hydrogen is expensive is energy cost. Like, it is expensive because of energy.
Right.
So if we are using unused energy, which is like, if it is not used, it is waste, right? So
Hmm.
we are practically using energy at a zero cost, and that makes hydrogen cheaper, and that might provide another opportunity with hydrogen fire engines, right? So I will say, like, with SMR, with SMR integration with greenhouses, we realize we have a big opportunity. We have a very big opportunity to make hydrogen as well, to go with like cleaner hydrogen,
Hmm.
and then slowly phase out this natural gas, right?
So,
Slowly.
it sounds like the SMR would be used, and I'm just thinking practically,
Yep.
it would probably have to be a group of greenhouses, coming together on on a model where they integrate their own kind of distributed energy or DER resource. And the major feed, or at least for the baseline, you would use the nuclear reactor. And feeding into that baseline, understanding that greenhouses load will fluctuate, when they need
Yep.
lights, when they don't, when they need power. Then you take the access production, so you run it at a steady state. But
Yes.
whenever you have surplus production, you don't let it go to waste. You use that to create hydrogen, let's say.
Yes.
Is there a color for hydrogen produced by nuclear? I know we have green, we have blue, we have
Yeah.
gray.
Yeah,
Is
it is called as a pink or purple hydrogen. It's just a
pink or
term.
purple hydrogen?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So it's a term. I know it sounds little funny, but yeah. But
So
as you
so
mentioned, yeah, we can produce pink hydrogen with that surplus energy.
right. And then all the natural gas and
Exactly.
CHPs that are running currently on gas and even diesel in some places,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
you could use that surplus as an extra revenue stream to improve the business model, and also support cleaner energy for the nearby jurisdictions.
Exactly. That was the major conclusion. Like, that was the idea we got from this particular study with greenhouses. Like, yeah, there might be a situation of particular greenhouse network, because a small modular reactor, it's always better to have a bigger size, to be honest, because of levelized cost. And another is the capital cost, like, and it's new technology, right? It's very difficult for a grower to invest like multiple $1 million in a immature technology right now, right?
Right.
If a group of a growers, or maybe like data center people, come up together and put money in it, then it makes more sense, right? And as you mentioned, with nuclear small modular reactor, if we run in it at a particular capacity factor, like particular rate, steady rate, we will have that opportunity to use surplus energy, because greenhouses are very fluctuable. Like, they might need no energy in daytime, zero, completely zero, and they might need 100% in the night, right?
Yeah.
So there is a big opportunity to use that excess surplus energy into hydrogen, and later on using that hydrogen to slowly phase out those natural gas big engines, which is causing global
Yeah.
warming, to be honest, being honest with you.
Right. Now, here's the interesting piece, and actually, one of the reasons why I joined the company where I currently work at Rodan Energy, and one of the big things that we do is we enable flexible energy assets.
Yep.
Responding to the grid. We also have a distributed energy resource division where we're developing energy storage projects, perhaps SMR projects in the near future, microgrids, and all these kind of applications. And in my mind, and this is tough to do, especially from a regulatory perspective, but
Yep.
in my mind, it seems that the best business case for distributed energy in microgrids is when folks play together,
Yep.
when companies play together. And
Yes.
and going back to the kind of the title of this conversation. So, for example, data centers, many of them are in the heart of cities. For example, right downtown Toronto,
Yep.
there are a number of data centers. Um, can we see an SMR in a high density populated location? And if not, maybe there's a different application where, for whatever reason, they can connect at a different location, and they can use the excess heat, the excess energy to support the surrounding area. For example, a data center has tons of heat. We can capture that heat in a district heating system
Yep.
and provide residents, commercial buildings
Yep.
with heat.
Yep.
What do you think?
I think that's going to be future. That is what this particular field about the energy management. And as you mentioned, the locations, these are the other factors as well, right? So right now, it looks little discouraging to say, but if there is a data center in a downtown, they might not be interested in a small modular reactor having next to it because of
Hmm.
people's perspective. uh,
Right,
right. And honestly, like North America hasn't seen a fully operating small modular reactor yet,
right.
like, right. So we haven't seen that working. We haven't seen
There's
how
too much risk.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
exactly, without looking at it, without knowing so many things, without doing tests, like we don't know much about it. So it will definitely take time to happen. But as you mentioned, the time has to be like this, like less than of 10 years. We have to have more energy, right? So there are so many factors to have these small nuclear reactors to
Hmm.
have next to us, like university, the data centers, because these are the high energy consuming customers, right? So it will definitely take time for with SMR. But again, as you mentioned, with the opportunity it provide is like using excess heat, using the unused heat, using the able to use that, like as I mentioned, unused energy, right? Back in, I think back in 2016 or to 2020, like Windsor have a lot of wind farm around, and they have to curtail their electricity,
Right.
right? Because there is so many, a lot of energy in the grid already, so they have to end up like curtailment. But again, with SMR, it can provide us an opportunity with with a stable, very stable unused energy, which we
Right.
know that it is stable. So that might provide an opportunity with like this hydrogen and other fuel, greener, cleaner options, right? So
Yeah.
I would say we still have a time, and this is the time where we have to put more effort on understanding how SMR should work, like is working, and what are the opportunity it brings with us. And with this energy management opportunity, I think we can be better with in this situation because
Right.
of the time factor and the opportunity. If we have to build an SMR or a nuclear reactor,
Hmm.
I don't think a country can afford more than 3 reactor in a decade, if going 100%.
With traditional
Traditional
nuclear
reactor,
power plants. Yep.
yeah, like it's very difficult to
Yeah.
have those, like for example, 3 nuclear big plants going in, going on together. It's very difficult for a
Right.
country to manage, right? But with a smaller reactor, as you mentioned, group of people might come up together, right? And
Right.
then they can make it happen, and maybe like 25, 30 reactors going together under construction. So that is
Yeah.
something going to be happening in the future for sure.
And of course, at that scale, you're
Yep.
looking at much shorter construction,
Exactly.
development, and implementation windows. One interesting conversation that I had with Samuel Gibson, who's a CEO of a company called hyd- hadron energy or hydrogen
Yep.
energy. And their concept and what they're targeting to have live for 2030 is basically a modular reactor that
Mm.
comes in about the size of a a shipping container,
Yep.
and you have this micro reactor or small reactor
Yes.
that you can bring on site, as a modular piece. You can stack them, you can put them beside each other,
Yep.
and one unit is basically 1 megawatt of power.
Yep. Yep.
So, like, that to me is seems like a very practical application where
Ye-
if you need something up quickly,
Yep.
and potentially it's not right in a residential area,
Mm.
and it's you can do it in a safe and relatively proven way, that this seems to be a very, very interesting solution, which is why I think even Hadrian Energy has signed something like a gigawatt of agreements for when their units are in production,
Yep.
again with data centers.
Yep, yep. Yeah, with
So
data centers, of course. And as you mentioned, with these micro reactors, right? It provides us an opportunity. If you have to scale it up, you can have 25 those small micro reactors together, 30 small reactor, and make it as a 30 megawatt plant, from 1 megawatt to 30 megawatt plant.
right,
In
scale
a
up as you
small.
need it.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what we need right now. Because with traditional reactor, if we have to increase the size, it will be again another 5 to 10 years, for sure.
Yeah, an x billionth amount of dollars.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
And everything from the like whether from a national treasury, I don't know how it goes, but yeah,
Yep.
it is how it works, right? So I think with smaller reactors, as the companies are doing right now, they are they have been having a good agreement with a few of the companies like Google's, Microsoft, and that's how it is. Like as I mentioned, it provide us an opportunity to replicate the same technology again and again. So
Hmm.
if one data center is powered from SMR, why not 35 others, right? So
Well,
I'm saying
that's probably how it's going to happen.
yes, yes,
What
exactly.
what one will implement a handful, and then from there, it's going to be just widespread adoption potentially,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Granted, we get over the fear of meltdowns,
Yep,
but before we close, I think it's important to note that one application, for example, is in you and I spoke about this, and you brought this up,
yep,
where
yep,
you have submarines
yep,
that the military's been using
yep,
that are powered by nuclear reactors, and this would be mini, micro, whatever you want to call it, very
yep,
small nuclear reactors that work with somewhat similar technology.
yep,
Now, of course, they're at the bottom of the, or not in the bottom, but they're in the ocean, so the catastrophe range, should something happen, sadly, is just limited. You know, it's limited to the folks on the vessel and not much outside. But with that said, these have been floating around our oceans for decades,
yep,
and studies have been done, and the crew members, the folks that sleep, meters away from these reactors sometimes,
yep,
you know, we're not seeing cancer rates. We're not seeing these the worst ideas come to life, and these are people that are right beside
yep.
these things.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I'm very happy that you have introduced this part as well. Yes, that's true. The submarines, like nuclear powers, not nuclear weapon, but nuclear powered submarines.
Right.
That's very
Yeah.
important to say. So like as I mentioned, everything we are going like we have been working is meeting the need or meeting the demands, right? And I think with the submarines as well, there was a need. For example, let's be very practical with submarines. They will be like months in the ocean. They need
Right.
energy for longer time. They can't carry like gallons of natural gas, let's say.
Right.
If they carry that, what about people, right? What about the food?
Right. There's a limited
Yeah,
weight
yes,
capacity that you can take on a
exactly.
on a submarine, of course.
Exactly, that was the need. So there was a need, and they come up with the solution as a nuclear powered small reactors, we can say engines, whatever we can say that. So they come up with that idea which doesn't need that much of refueling. So if it is refueled once, it might last for years. and with that opportunity they can carry more food, and food become the limiting factor for them to be in the ocean, right? So
Right.
as I mentioned, the need was the major reason behind it, why the submarines were powered by nuclear. Although these all are military or like research submarines, I'll say, and everything have been backed by the government of nations, right? So there wasn't much about return on investment. It was all about investment, I'll say
Right.
that. It's
Right.
all about investment.
You,
So
you you don't need a business case. You just need it to work.
exactly. Yeah, it wasn't a business case. It was more into the investment, or it was more into the national security, right?
Right.
So for that reason, that was the major factor behind those submarines. And right now we are in somehow similar situation. That is the need. That is the demand. Like right now, what is the demand? Is the energy demand. If we don't meet that demand, we might be limited with that energy, and we might not be uh, having those IT, like those AI technology in future, right?
Right.
so
Or,
so
or or we get to a place where we started the conversation where there's intermittent brownouts and everybody prepares to have
yeah,
candles on site so that way we can power data centers, which is a bit
exactly.
of an interesting future concept, right? But
Yep, exactly.
Anup, we've got 5 minutes. We'll leave a, a little bit of time if anybody wants to drop any comments in the chat. Please feel free. But with that said, Anup, your final your closing comments on SMRs.
I think SMR is not a future, it's going to be present soon, I'll say that, because we're talking about SMR future of SMR nuclear energy, but now it has to be present. So there should be such kind of a reactor model development in Canada in like coming up few years from now.
Hmm.
And as I mentioned, it's become a need for us. It's become a need, and as a engineering student, I am very much excited with this how it goes. I am like I recently attended a meeting and from a former ASTRA member president, and she mentioned that our life as a student, we are a student, but our whole career will be on decarbonization, and it might
Right.
happen, right? It might happen. We have already make the ozone layer. There's so many things
Yep.
already gone bad. So as an engineer, I really want to see how it going to happen, especially in SMR field. And I am very much interested in uh, have like in interested in providing my effort. Like I want to see how much I can contribute in this particular field. As I mentioned, it's a new technology and it's in very early stage, but later on it might be a biggest game changer. And and slowly it might power everything, even the rocket. We might come up with a situation of living in the space with that energy, right? We never know.
Yep.
I'm very much interested, and I'm very much optimistic with this SMR, to be honest.
Very good, and perhaps we can partner on some projects
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and get some SMRs going in the next, I'll say, 10 years or less, because
Yep, yep,
I
yep,
do
yep.
think we're going to see some of these implemented by, aggressively speaking, 2030. The
Yep,
demand is there,
yes,
the finances, the need is there to make it happen.
that's
But
great.
Anup, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you, learning about SMRs, the talking about the past, the present, and of course the future, which is exciting. So thank you very much for the conversation, and we look forward to speaking again soon.
Yep.
And with that said, we'll close off this webinar.
Yep, that's good talk, and I'm very much interested to see how what it's coming up in future, especially in SMR.
Very
Thanks.
good. Thank you.